if you get lucky out of college, you get one of the most interesting jobs at the time in America, and that was working for the car czar. Haley Stevens was chief of staff for Steve Rattner as we tried to save the auto industry of her Michigan. She's moved on to be the congresswoman, the Democrat congresswoman from what forever has been a Republican district, and she is absolutely on the cusp of that 51%, 49% conundrum of close Democratic and Republican politics. This is northwest of Detroit. We welcome Congresswoman Stevens today to Bloomberg Surveillance. Congresswoman, what a fascinating time to be in, except there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering in your Michigan. What do you need from Speaker Pelosi? What do you need from the U.S. Senate?
Well, thank you for the kind words, Tom, and the accurate description of my region politically. Economically and medically right now, it's a double whammy in Michigan. Livonia, Michigan is the highest per capita fatality rate in the country. This is a community of about 100,000 people and home to a lot of automotive suppliers. It's right there connected into this Detroit ecosystem for automotive that we have. And the other side of this coin is an economic crisis. There's no other way to say it. It's double-digit unemployment. Our auto industry has been halted. The big three went into hibernation, and with that, all the suppliers saw their production orders fall to zero. Now we're starting to look at coming back online. As we go forward into future coronavirus legislation, this is what I need our entire, legislative operation to be focused on. And I'm certainly not the only one saying this. There's many colleagues throughout the Michigan delegation and in the Midwest, but we need to be focused on what manufacturing means with a recognition for its complexity.
Congresswoman, just because of time, I want to get to this, and I know General Motors sold a lot of pickup trucks yesterday, which is great, but Congresswoman,
yes, they did.
I want to know how Vice President Biden shifts towards Connor Lamb, shifts towards Haley Stevens. How does Vice President Biden bring the liberal part of the Democratic Party over to people like you who are going to lose if he's too liberal?
Well, look, here's the situation in Michigan, is that automotive isn't anything other than our economic reality. And when you champion manufacturing like Joe Biden has done, that resonates. That's what Haley Stevens did when she was campaigning in 2018. That's what speaks to the heart of the issues here. We're talking about the middle class. And when we talk about growing the middle class, we're talking about lifting people out of poverty. We're talking about these policy ideas that provide that on-ramp to that opportunity. And so when we're looking right now at some of these inequities that exist, healthcare inequities, racial inequities, that's what's on people's minds, certainly. And then they're also saying, hey, how do we make sure we've got an economic agenda? You know, the Democrats come into the House of Representatives and they inherit a Republican supermajority's government shutdown. They inherit utter dysfunction. What have we done? We've passed a budget in a record time. We've put forward economic policies for the people, by the people, that don't speak for special corporate interests. Everybody knows this big tax bill that was passed, you know, that saddles us $1.5 trillion debt over the next 10 years deficit.
Congresswoman,
So,
let me bring in my colleague from London, Francine Lacroix. Francine?
Congresswoman, yeah, and we try and, of course, always keep in mind the human aspect of Congresswomen, and this is, I'm sure, extremely, concerning when you're in charge of Michigan and try to figure out exactly what comes next. Will this COVID-19 change the social contract of what people in Michigan expect from their representatives?
Look, that's a very fair question. There's certainly no playbook. What there is there's science and there's fact. I happen to be the subcommittee chair of the House Science Research and Technology Committee. Part of the coaching here is we've got to be patient. We've got to wait for the research. We've got to be vigilant. The other side of this is I have told my constituents since this pandemic was announced, I will not let you fail, that you are not allowed to fail economically or medically. So you look at the packages that we put into place, standing up for the American worker, protecting their wages, securing the critical industrial assets of this nation. You've got to make planes. You've got to make cars. You've got to have a supply chain for those things. We've got to protect small businesses. You know, you can start to define small businesses, operations with 250 employees or less, and on down. In suburbia, you're representing small downtowns full of sole proprietors. Those were the hardest hit coming out of the recession. In droves, we lost small businesses. And we'll be damned to see that happen again. I'm sorry to say that word on your show, but it's just the truth here. That we have got to say to everybody, you are not allowed to fail. And the policies that we are putting into place are securing the economic success of our middle class and hardworking people.
Yep. But Congresswoman, how does that depend?
I come from a family of small business owners. So,
how much does that depend on the phases? How much does it depend on phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4? And what will be the lasting legacy or the lasting scar of this economic crisis?
Well, everyone's looking into their crystal ball on that matter. I think we've got to pay attention not only to our manufacturing sector. Look, this is the saying in Detroit, that Detroit hustles harder. You know, our auto industry has dealt with a different crisis before that it has some similarities to today's and a lot of differences. Capital-intensive industries, lots of innovation, major commitment to move forward. The whole world's watching us in terms of autonomous vehicles, energy-efficient vehicles, all that stuff. That's great. That's going to continue to go forward here. We're going to continue to employ a lot of people. There's another side to this, which is what employs about a quarter of the jobs, if not more, is in these service sectors, in the retail sectors, child care. I mean, I'm home to one of the nation's largest child care providers. You know, they've been shuttered. You tell me how we come back online without daycare centers. We've got to resolve some of these outstanding revenue and liquidity issues. Not that I can feign revenue for small businesses and restaurants and beauty parlors and even our clothing shops, right, which are a segment of our economy. I can't feign that, but I can't have empty storefronts in my downtown.
Congresswoman, I got time for one more question, and I can't talk Michigan State hockey, or the state of the Detroit Tigers. What I want to know is the Democratic Party going to move to the Stevens, Hubert Humphrey, Scoop Jackson middle, or is your party still going to be shown as a progressive, liberal, dominant urban party that has trouble speaking to Northwest Detroit?
I'll tell you, I'm focused on a Democratic Party that's in the 21st century, and that is building and moving the agenda of the worker, the middle class, the suburban mom, and that is focused on not only what we're just a few short years away from, which is the quarter 21st century, and then as we move into the mid 21st century. Look, you look at the post 9/11 economic narrative. Proliferating the gig economy all came out of the United States, very much tied into autos. We've got, billions of dollars of data, we've got data streaming at a high rate through vehicles, right? All the Internet of Things technology that, has been propagated and proliferated just in the last 20 years, transforming over and over again, even the manufacturing process here.
Congresswoman,
So we've got to build that economic vision. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thanks.
Congresswoman, we got to go because I got to go out and buy a GM pickup truck. Haley Stevens from Detroit, thank you so much for being with us today.